Hi there, and welcome back to Sleepy Philosophy. It's lovely to have you here tonight. Before we begin our gentle journey through one of the most profound books ever written, I'd love to know where you're settling in this evening. Perhaps you're nestled under soft blankets, maybe curled up in a favourite chair with a warm cup of tea cooling beside you, or lying in bed watching shadows dance across the ceiling. Wherever you are, I hope you're comfortable and ready to drift into some deeply meaningful thoughts. If you find these peaceful explorations of wisdom relaxing, a gentle like and subscribe really helps this little channel continue bringing you these soothing philosophical journeys. And to those of you who've already joined our community, thank you. Your presence means more than you know. Tonight we're going to explore a book that emerged from humanity's darkest hour, yet somehow manages to illuminate the most essential truths about what makes life worth living. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning isn't just philosophy written in an armchair. It's wisdom forged in the furnaces of Nazi concentration camps, tested in conditions where hope seemed impossible, and refined through years of helping others find purpose in their suffering. This isn't a book that asks you to imagine what meaning might look like in theory. It shows you what meaning looks like when everything else has been stripped away. When comfort is gone, when freedom is lost, when tomorrow isn't promised, what remains? What can no one take from you, no matter how dire the circumstances? Frankl discovered something remarkable during his time in 4 different concentration camps, including Auschwitz. He found that even in the most dehumanizing conditions imaginable, some people maintained an inner freedom that their captors could never touch. Others, despite having better physical conditions, lost hope entirely. What made the difference wasn't luck, physical strength, or external circumstances. It was something far more profound and accessible to all of us. The answer lies in how we choose to face our suffering, how we decide to respond to life's inevitable challenges, and most importantly, what meaning we discover or create in our experiences. This book offers us a roadmap for finding that meaning, not just in extreme circumstances, but in the quiet struggles and daily uncertainties we all navigate. As we settle into this exploration together, there's no need to grasp every concept or memorize every insight. We'll move gently through Frankl's discoveries, allowing his hard-won wisdom to wash over us like a gentle tide. Some ideas will resonate immediately, others may settle into understanding as you sleep, and still others might bloom into clarity in the days to come. Let's begin by understanding who Viktor Frankl was, and how he came to write this extraordinary book. Born in Vienna in 1905, Frankl was a young psychiatrist and neurologist who had already begun developing his ideas about meaning and purpose before the Nazi regime changed everything. He was particularly interested in what drove some people towards suicide, while others found reasons to keep living, even in desperate circumstances. In 1942, Frankl, his wife and his parents were deported to concentration camps. Over the next 3 years, he would experience firsthand what he later called an experiment in human nature. He lost almost everything. His parents died in the camps, his wife perished in Bergen-Belsen, the manuscript for his life's work was destroyed. Yet somehow, in losing everything external, he discovered something internal that proved unshakable. What Frankl observed during those dark years became the foundation for what he would later call logotherapy, meaning therapy focused on helping people find purpose in their lives. Unlike other forms of psychotherapy that might focus on pleasure or power as primary human drives, Frankl concluded that our deepest need is for meaning. This wasn't an abstract philosophical conclusion. It was a survival insight born from watching who lived and who died in the camps. Physical health mattered, certainly. Luck played a role. But again and again, Frankl noticed that those who maintained some sense of purpose, some reason to keep going, some meaning in their suffering, were more likely to survive the unsurvivable. The book itself is divided into 2 main sections. The first part recounts Frankl's experiences in the concentration camps. not as a historical account, but as a psychological study of how human beings respond to extreme suffering. The second part outlines the principles of logotherapy and how we can apply these insights to find meaning in our own lives, regardless of our circumstances. What makes this book so powerful isn't just that it emerged from such darkness, but that it offers hope without denying reality. Frankl doesn't minimize suffering or suggest that positive thinking alone can overcome any obstacle. Instead, he shows us how to transform unavoidable suffering into something meaningful, how to find purpose even when we cannot change our circumstances. One of the most striking aspects of Frankl's approach is his insistence that meaning cannot be given to us by others or discovered through abstract reasoning alone. Meaning must be found by each person for themselves, and it's often found in the most unexpected places. Sometimes meaning emerges through creating something or achieving a goal. Sometimes it's discovered in experiencing beauty, truth, or love. And sometimes, perhaps most profoundly, meaning is found in the attitude we choose to take toward unavoidable suffering. This last point is crucial and deeply comforting. It means that no matter what circumstances we face, no matter what has been taken from us or what challenges lie ahead, we always retain the freedom to choose our response. This inner freedom, Frankl argues, is the last of human freedoms, and the one that can never truly be taken away. As we begin to explore these ideas more deeply, it's worth noting that Frankl's insights extend far beyond extreme circumstances. In our daily lives, we all face smaller versions of the questions he grappled with. When work feels meaningless, when relationships disappoint us, when illness strikes, when loss visits us, when the future seems uncertain, we're confronted with the same fundamental choice that prisoners faced in the camps. We can despair, or we can search for meaning. We can become bitter, or we can become better. We can focus on what's been taken from us, or we can discover what remains within our power to give. The beauty of Frankl's approach is its accessibility. You don't need advanced education or special circumstances to apply these principles. You don't need to be religious, though Frankl's insights certainly complement spiritual traditions. You don't need to be facing a crisis, though these tools become especially valuable during difficult times. What you need is simply a willingness to look at your life and ask different questions. Instead of asking why life is treating you unfairly, you might ask what life is expecting from you. Instead of demanding that circumstances change to make you happy, you might explore how you can find meaning within current circumstances. Instead of waiting for purpose to arrive from outside, you might consider what purposes you can create or discover through your own choices and actions. This shift in perspective from passive victim to active meaning maker represents one of the most profound transformations available to human beings. It's a transformation that costs nothing but changes everything. It requires no special equipment, no particular circumstances, no permission from others. It's available to you right now, wherever you are, whatever you're facing. Frankl often spoke about the difference between happiness and meaning, and this distinction illuminates something important about human flourishing. Happiness tends to be fleeting, dependent on circumstances, focused on what we can get from life. Meaning, on the other hand, can be enduring, independent of circumstances, focused on what we can give to life. A meaningful life isn't necessarily an easy life, but it's a life worth living. This doesn't mean we should seek out suffering or avoid happiness. Rather, it means we can find profound satisfaction and purpose even during difficult periods, and we can maintain our sense of direction even when external rewards are scarce. This resilience isn't built through denial or forced optimism, but through a deep understanding of what truly matters and a commitment to living according to those values, regardless of circumstances. As we continue our gentle exploration of these ideas, let yourself settle more deeply into comfort. There's wisdom here that doesn't need to be grasped forcefully, but can be absorbed naturally, like warmth from a fireplace, or the gradual lightening of dawn. Frankl's insights have helped millions of people find their way through darkness, not because they're complicated, but because they're profoundly simple and universally applicable. The human capacity for meaning-making is perhaps our species' greatest strength. Unlike other creatures who are driven primarily by instinct or immediate needs, we have the remarkable ability to find significance in our experiences, to create purposes that transcend our individual circumstances, and to choose responses that reflect our deepest values rather than our immediate impulses. This capacity isn't always easy to access, especially when we're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed. But it's always there, waiting patiently for us to remember it exists. Tonight, as we journey together through Frankl's discoveries, we're not just learning about psychology or philosophy. We're reconnecting with this fundamental human capacity that belongs to each of us, that has carried our species through countless challenges, and that remains available to guide us through whatever tomorrow might bring. What strikes me most profoundly about Frankl's discoveries is how they illuminate something we often overlook in our comfortable lives. We spend so much energy trying to arrange our external circumstances perfectly, believing that happiness lies just around the corner if we can only get the right job, the right relationship, the right living situation. Yet here was a man who found unshakable purpose in conditions where such external arrangements were not just unavailable, but deliberately stripped away. This revelation invites us to consider a gentle but radical shift in how we approach our daily struggles. When we wake up feeling unmotivated, when work seems tedious, when relationships feel strained, we might ask ourselves not how to escape these feelings, but what meaning might be waiting to be discovered within them. This isn't about embracing suffering for its own sake, but about recognizing that even our most difficult moments can become doorways to deeper understanding. Frankl observed something remarkable about human behavior under extreme stress. Those who survived weren't necessarily the physically strongest, or the most optimistic in a conventional sense. Rather, they were people who maintained what he called a future-oriented perspective. They had something ahead of them that they needed to accomplish, someone they needed to see again, or some responsibility they felt called to fulfill. This forward-looking meaning gave them strength to endure present hardships. In our own lives, this principle translates beautifully into everyday resilience. When we feel overwhelmed by current difficulties, we can ask ourselves what future possibilities these challenges might be preparing us for. Perhaps the patience we're learning while caring for an aging parent will serve us in ways we can't yet imagine. Maybe the skills we're developing in a challenging job will open doors we haven't even considered. The meaning isn't always obvious immediately, but the act of looking for it changes how we experience the present moment. One of the most comforting aspects of Frankl's approach is how it democratizes wisdom. You don't need to be a philosopher or a saint to access these insights. Meaning can be found in the simplest actions when they align with our deeper values. A nurse finding purpose in easing someone's pain, a parent discovering meaning in teaching their child kindness, a friend creating significance by truly listening during someone's difficult moment. These aren't grand gestures that will be remembered by history, but they represent the kind of quiet heroism that makes life meaningful. The concentration camp experience taught Frankl that meaning often emerges not from what happens to us, but from the stance we take toward what happens to us. This distinction is crucial because it places the power to create meaning firmly within our own hands, regardless of circumstances. We cannot always control what life brings us, but we can always choose how we relate to those experiences. This freedom of response, what Frankl called our last human freedom, becomes particularly precious when we consider how often we feel trapped by our circumstances. The demanding boss, the difficult family situation, the health challenge, the financial pressure. While we work to change what we can change, there's profound peace in recognizing that our inner response remains our choice. We can meet difficulties with resentment or with curiosity, We can face uncertainty with panic or with openness to what might unfold. Frankl's insights also shed light on why some people seem naturally more resilient than others. It's not that they experience fewer difficulties or possess some special immunity to life's challenges. Rather, they've developed, either consciously or intuitively, the ability to find meaning in their experiences. They've learned to see themselves not as passive victims of circumstance, but as active authors of their response to circumstance. This doesn't mean forcing false positivity or pretending that difficult situations aren't genuinely difficult. Frankl never minimized the reality of suffering. Instead, he showed how we can acknowledge pain fully while simultaneously discovering what it might teach us, how it might deepen our compassion, or what strengths it might reveal that we didn't know we possessed. The practice of meaning-making becomes especially valuable during transitions and uncertainties. When old identities no longer fit, when familiar routines are disrupted, when the future feels unclear, we can experience a kind of existential disorientation. These moments, uncomfortable as they are, often represent invitations to discover new sources of meaning. The career change that initially feels frightening might lead to work that better aligns with our values. The relationship ending that brings such pain might create space for deeper self-understanding and more authentic connections. Frankl's experience also illuminates the difference between happiness as a goal and happiness as a byproduct. When we chase happiness directly, it often remains elusive. But when we focus on living meaningfully, on contributing to something beyond ourselves, on growing through our challenges, happiness tends to emerge naturally as a side effect. This isn't guaranteed happiness, but it's often a more sustainable and profound satisfaction than what comes from external achievements alone. The concept of meaning that Frankl developed is beautifully flexible and personal. For some, meaning emerges through creative expression, through writing, art, music, or innovation that contributes something new to the world. For others, meaning is discovered through experiential values, through deep relationships, appreciation of beauty, or moments of transcendence that connect them to something larger than themselves. And for still others, meaning is found primarily through attitudinal values, through the courage, dignity, and compassion they bring to unavoidable suffering. What's particularly comforting is that these different sources of meaning can shift and evolve throughout our lives. The meaning we find in our 20s, through achievement and exploration, might give way to meaning found in our 40s, through nurturing relationships and contributing to community. The physical limitations that come with aging might close some doors to meaning while opening others, perhaps through wisdom sharing or the deep acceptance that comes with life experience. This evolution of meaning reflects something profound about human adaptability. We are meaning-making creatures not just in extraordinary circumstances, but as an ongoing way of being in the world. Each day offers opportunities to create significance through our choices, our relationships, and our responses to both joy and difficulty. These opportunities don't require special recognition or external validation. Their value lies in how they align with our deeper sense of purpose and contribution. As you settle more deeply into rest this evening, consider how these insights might gently reshape your relationship with your own challenges and uncertainties. There's no pressure to transform everything immediately or to find meaning in every difficult moment right away. Instead, there's simply an invitation to remain curious about what purposes might be waiting to unfold, what growth might be available through current difficulties, and what contributions you might make that feel genuinely meaningful to you. The remarkable thing about Frankl's discoveries is how they continue to ripple outward, touching lives decades after they were first articulated. This suggests something hopeful about wisdom itself. When insights are grounded in genuine human experience and tested in the crucible of real difficulty, they tend to remain relevant across time and circumstances. They become part of humanity's shared toolkit, for navigating the complexities of existence. Tonight, as these ideas settle into your awareness like snowflakes finding their place in a quiet landscape, trust that whatever meaning you're called to create or discover will emerge in its own time. The very fact that you're here, listening actions, suggests into these revel openness to growth and wisdom that is itself meaningful. Sometimes the search for meaning begins simply with the recognition that such a search is possible and worthwhile. In the quiet moments between waking and sleeping, when the day's demands have softened and our minds begin to settle, we often find ourselves confronting questions that daylight hours leave little room for. What am I really doing with my life? Does any of this matter? Am I making a difference, or simply going through the motions? These aren't questions that Frankl invented, but they're questions his experience illuminated in ways that few thinkers have managed. What emerges from his observations is something both challenging and deeply comforting. The challenging part is that meaning isn't something we can purchase, achieve, or have handed to us by others. It requires active participation, conscious choice, and often the courage to look directly at what we'd rather avoid. The comforting part is that this capacity exists within each of us, waiting patiently to be accessed regardless of our circumstances, education, or past experiences. Frankl discovered that meaning often reveals itself through what he called self-transcendence. This isn't about becoming superhuman or achieving some elevated spiritual state. Rather, it's about the simple recognition that our lives gain significance when they point towards something beyond our immediate concerns. This might be as grand as dedicating ourselves to a cause that will outlive us, or as intimate as bringing genuine presence to a conversation with someone who needs to be heard. The beauty of self-transcendence is that it's available in the smallest moments. When we listen to a friend without planning what we'll say next, when we approach a difficult task with curiosity rather than resentment, when we choose patience over irritation in a frustrating situation, we're stepping outside the narrow circle of self-concern and discovering the expansion that comes with connecting to something larger. This principle becomes especially relevant when we consider how often modern life can feel isolating or meaningless. We scroll through endless streams of information, consume entertainment designed to distract rather than nourish, and chase achievements that promise fulfillment but often leave us feeling empty. Frankl's insights suggest that this emptiness isn't a personal failing, but a natural consequence of losing touch with our capacity for meaning-making. The solution isn't to abandon comfort or seek out suffering, but to reconnect with our deeper purposes. This might mean approaching our work differently, asking not just what we can get from it, but what we can contribute through it. It might mean reimagining our relationships, considering not just what others can provide for us, but what understanding, support, or kindness we might offer them. It might mean viewing our challenges not as obstacles to our happiness, but as invitations to discover strengths and insights we didn't know we possessed. One of the most profound aspects of Frankl's approach is how it reframes our relationship with time. Instead of seeing life as a series of moments to be gotten through or problems to be solved, we begin to see each day as an opportunity to respond to whatever life is asking of us. This shift transforms waiting from a frustrating delay into a chance to practice patience. It turns setbacks from defeats into occasions for discovering resilience. It converts ordinary interactions into possibilities for creating connection and understanding. This doesn't mean every moment becomes profound, or that we never feel bored, frustrated, or discouraged. Rather, it means we develop a different relationship with these inevitable human experiences. Instead of seeing them as evidence that something is wrong with our lives, we can recognize them as part of the raw material from which meaning is crafted. The frustration we feel in traffic might become an opportunity to practice acceptance. The boredom we experience during routine tasks might invite us to bring more presence and care to simple activities. Frankl often spoke about the importance of being worthy of our suffering. This phrase can sound harsh at first, but it contains a gentle wisdom. It suggests that when we encounter unavoidable difficulties, we have the opportunity to meet them with dignity, courage, and grace. This doesn't mean pretending difficulties aren't difficult or forcing ourselves to feel grateful for painful experiences. It means recognizing that how we carry our burdens becomes part of who we are and what we contribute to the world. Think of someone you admire who has faced significant challenges with remarkable grace. What you're witnessing isn't superhuman strength, but the human capacity to find meaning in adversity. This capacity isn't reserved for exceptional people facing extraordinary circumstances. It's available to all of us in our encounters with everyday disappointments, losses, and struggles. The practice of finding meaning often begins with paying attention to what moves us, what calls to us, what makes us feel more alive and connected. These aren't always dramatic callings or sudden revelations. More often, they're quiet recognitions that emerge when we create space for reflection. Maybe it's the satisfaction we feel when helping someone understand something complex. Perhaps it's the peace that comes from spending time in nature. It might be the joy we experience when creating something with our hands, or the sense of purpose we find in making our community a little bit better. Frankl's insights also illuminate why simply pursuing pleasure or avoiding pain rarely leads to lasting satisfaction. Pleasure is wonderful when it arises naturally, but when it becomes our primary goal, it tends to become elusive. Pain is genuinely difficult, but when we learn to work with it skillfully, it often becomes a teacher rather than simply an enemy. Meaning emerges not from the absence of difficulty, but from our willingness to engage authentically with whatever our lives present. This engagement requires what Frankl called responsible action. We become responsible, capable of thoughtful response rather than mere reaction. When someone speaks to us harshly, we can choose whether to respond with defensiveness or curiosity about what they might be struggling with. When we face a setback, we can decide whether to become bitter or to explore. When we encounter beauty, we can choose whether to rush what this experience might teach us, past it or pause to let it nourish something deeper within us. The development of this capacity for meaningful response is perhaps the most practical gift of Frankl's work. It doesn't require us to change our circumstances before we can begin. It doesn't depend on having perfect clarity about our life's purpose. It simply asks us to bring more consciousness to how we meet each moment, each interaction, each choice that presents itself. As these ideas settle into your awareness like gentle rain soaking into thirsty soil, notice how they might already be reflected in moments from your own experience. Times when you felt most alive and connected, most proud of how you've handled difficulty, most grateful for the opportunity to contribute something meaningful to someone else's life. These moments point toward the kinds of meaning that are uniquely yours to discover and create. The search for meaning isn't a destination we arrive at, but a way of traveling through our days. It's available whether we're in a season of growth or struggle, abundance or scarcity, clarity or confusion. What changes isn't the availability of meaning, but our openness to recognizing it, and our skill in cultivating it through our choices and responses. Frankl understood that meaning isn't something we possess, but something we participate in. It flows through our relationships, our work, our responses to beauty and challenge, our willingness to grow and contribute. Like a river that's always moving, meaning requires our active engagement to remain alive and nourishing. This perspective offers profound comfort during uncertain times. When the future feels unclear, when old sources of identity or purpose no longer fit, when we're between chapters of our lives, we don't need to wait for clarity to begin living meaningfully. We can start exactly where we are, with whatever opportunities for authentic response present themselves today. The quiet heroism that Frankl witnessed in the camps continues to unfold in countless lives every day. People choosing kindness when it would be easier to be indifferent, finding ways to contribute despite personal struggles, meeting challenges with dignity even when no one is watching. These aren't extraordinary acts by exceptional people, but the ordinary magic that happens when human beings remember their capacity for meaning-making. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, there's no need to solve the puzzle of your life's ultimate purpose, or to transform every difficulty into a source of meaning. There's simply an invitation to remain open, to stay curious about what purposes might be calling to you, and to trust that your willingness to engage authentically with your life is itself a form of meaning. The very fact that you're reflecting on these questions, that you're open to growth and wisdom, suggests that meaning is already stirring within you, waiting for the right moments to emerge and flourish. In the gentle space between today's experiences and tomorrow's possibilities, let yourself rest in the knowledge that meaning isn't something you have to create from nothing, but something you can discover and cultivate through your willingness to engage fully with whatever life offers you. Like a gardener who tends the soil without forcing the flowers to bloom, you can create conditions for meaning to emerge naturally through your attention, your choices, and your open-hearted response to both the joys and challenges that make up a human life. The remarkable thing about Frankl's understanding of meaning is how it reveals itself not in grand gestures, but in the texture of ordinary moments. When he observed his fellow prisoners, he noticed that those who maintained their inner strength weren't necessarily the ones making dramatic speeches or heroic sacrifices. Often, they were people who shared their last piece of bread with someone weaker, who told a joke to lift spirits in the barracks, or who simply refused to let their captors determine how they would think about their situation. This observation carries profound implications for how we might approach our own daily lives. We often wait for significant events or major life changes to begin living meaningfully. We tell ourselves that once we find the right career, meet the right person, or reach a certain level of success, then we'll start contributing something valuable to the world. But Frankl's experience suggests that meaning is available right now, in how we choose to respond to whatever this day has brought us. Consider the difference between going through your morning routine mechanically versus bringing genuine presence to these simple acts. When you prepare breakfast, you might do so with irritation at the time it takes, or you might approach it as an opportunity to nourish yourself and perhaps others. When you encounter someone who seems rushed or stressed, you might mirror their energy, or you might offer the gift of calm presence. These aren't life-changing moments in any dramatic sense, yet they represent the building blocks from which a meaningful life is constructed. Frankl discovered that meaning emerges through what we might call conscious participation, rather than passive consumption. Instead of asking what the day will give us, we learn to ask what we might give to the day. This shift in orientation changes everything. Traffic becomes a chance to practice patience. A difficult conversation becomes an opportunity to listen more deeply. A setback becomes an invitation to discover resilience we didn't know we possessed. The beauty of this approach is that it works regardless of our circumstances. Whether we're facing major challenges or simply navigating the ordinary complexities of daily life, we always have the opportunity to choose our response. This isn't about forced optimism or pretending difficulties aren't real. Rather, it's about recognizing that even in the most constrained situations, we retain some degree of inner freedom. One of the most comforting aspects of Frankl's insights is how they address the quiet desperation that many people experience in modern life. We live in an age of unprecedented material comfort and opportunity, yet rates of anxiety, depression, and existential emptiness continue to climb. Frankl would suggest that this apparent paradox makes perfect sense. When our basic needs are met but we lack a sense of purpose, when we have endless entertainment options but little that feels genuinely meaningful, we naturally begin to feel adrift. The solution isn't to create artificial hardships or to feel guilty about our comfort. Instead, it's to recognize that meaning doesn't depend on dramatic circumstances, but on our willingness to engage authentically with whatever life presents. This might mean approaching our work differently, not necessarily changing jobs, but finding ways to contribute value through whatever role we currently occupy. It might mean deepening our relationships by offering more genuine presence and less distracted attention. It might mean discovering purposes that extend beyond our immediate circle of concern. Frankl often emphasized that meaning cannot be pursued directly, in the same way that happiness cannot be chased successfully. Both tend to emerge as byproducts of other activities. When we focus on contributing something valuable, on growing through our challenges, on connecting authentically with others, both meaning and a deeper satisfaction naturally arise. This doesn't guarantee constant happiness, but it offers something more sustainable, carry us through difficult periods, a sense of purpose that can and enhance joyful ones. The practice of meaning-making also transforms our relationship with time. Instead of seeing life as a series of moments to endure until something better comes along, we begin to recognize each day as irreplaceable. Not because every moment is pleasant, but because each offers unique opportunities for response, growth, and contribution that will never come again in quite the same way. This perspective becomes especially valuable during periods of waiting or transition. When we're between jobs, recovering from illness, or going through relationship changes, it's easy to feel as though we're in a holding pattern, waiting for real life to resume. But Frankl's insight suggests that these periods often contain their own meaningful possibilities. The patience we develop while waiting, the self-understanding that emerges during solitude, the compassion we discover through our own struggles, all these can become sources of meaning that enrich not only our own lives, but our future contributions to others. The concept of meaning that Frankl developed is remarkably inclusive. It doesn't require particular beliefs, specific circumstances, or extraordinary abilities. A grandmother finding purpose in passing wisdom to her grandchildren, a custodian taking pride in creating clean, welcoming spaces, a friend offering steady presence during someone's difficult time, all are engaged in meaning-making activities. The significance comes not from external recognition, but from the alignment between actions and deeper values. This democratization of meaning offers profound hope. It suggests that no matter what our background, education, or current circumstances, we have access to sources of purpose and significance. We don't need to wait for permission, perfect conditions, or complete clarity about our life's direction. We can begin exactly where we are, with whatever opportunities for authentic response present themselves today. Frankl also understood that meaning often emerges through what he called the will to meaning, rather than the will to pleasure or the will to power. While pleasure and achievement can certainly be part of a meaningful life, they rarely sustain us through difficult periods when pursued as ends in themselves. Meaning, on the other hand, can provide strength and direction even during times when pleasure is scarce and conventional success feels impossible. This distinction becomes particularly relevant when we consider how to navigate setbacks and disappointments. When a relationship ends, when a career path doesn't unfold as planned, when health challenges arise, we can choose to focus primarily on what we've lost, or we can explore what these experiences might teach us about resilience, compassion, or what truly matters. Neither response is wrong, but one tends to lead toward meaning while the other leads toward bitterness. The practice of finding meaning in difficulty doesn't require us to be grateful for painful experiences or to pretend they aren't genuinely hard. Instead, it invites us to remain curious about what these challenges might reveal about our strength, what they might teach us about life, or how they might deepen our ability to understand and help others facing similar struggles. As you settle more deeply into rest this evening, notice how these ideas might already be reflected in your own experience. Think of times when you felt most proud of how you handled a difficult situation, moments when you've made a difference in someone's day through small acts of kindness, or periods when you've discovered strength you didn't know you possessed. These memories point toward the kinds of meaning that are uniquely yours to cultivate and express. The search for meaning isn't something we complete, but something we participate in throughout our lives. Like a river that's always flowing, meaning requires our ongoing attention and engagement to remain alive and nourishing. Sometimes it flows strongly and obviously. Other times it moves quietly beneath the surface, barely visible but still present, still shaping the landscape of our experience. What Frankl discovered in the darkest possible circumstances continues to illuminate ordinary life in extraordinary ways. His insights remind us that we are not passive recipients of whatever life brings us, but active participants in creating significance through our responses, our relationships, and our choices. This participation doesn't require perfection or constant awareness. It simply asks for our willingness to remain open to the possibilities for meaning that each day offers. Tonight, as these reflections accompany you towards sleep, there's no need to transform everything at once or to solve the puzzle of your life's ultimate purpose. There's simply an invitation to trust that your capacity for creating meaning is as natural and reliable as your capacity for breathing. Sometimes it happens automatically, without conscious effort. Other times it requires intentional attention and choice, but it's always available, waiting patiently to be accessed whenever you're ready to engage with life, not just as something that happens to you, but as something you actively participate in shaping through your presence, your responses, and your willingness to contribute whatever gifts are uniquely yours to offer. The gentle wisdom that emerges from such darkness continues to offer light, not because it promises easy answers, but because it reminds us of our fundamental capacity to find purpose and create significance regardless of circumstances. In recognizing this capacity, we discover not just a tool for surviving difficult times, but a pathway toward living fully in whatever times we're given. In this space between consciousness and sleep, let's explore one of the most profound discoveries that Frankl made during his time in the camps. He noticed that prisoners who survived weren't necessarily those with the strongest bodies or the most resources. Instead, they were often people who had developed what he called a future-oriented attitude. They had something ahead of them that mattered deeply, someone they needed to see again, or some work they felt compelled to complete. This observation reveals something beautiful about human nature. We are creatures designed to live forward, to lean into tomorrow with purpose and intention. Even in the most desperate circumstances, the human spirit can find strength by connecting to possibilities that exist beyond the present moment. This isn't about denial or false hope, but about maintaining connection to purposes that transcend immediate circumstances. Consider how this principle might apply to your own life. During difficult periods, when the weight of current challenges feels overwhelming, there's profound strength to be found in connecting with future possibilities. Perhaps it's the book you want to write, the garden you plan to cultivate, the grandchildren you hope to know, or simply the person you're becoming through your current struggles. These future-oriented meanings don't erase present difficulties, but they provide a context that makes endurance possible. Frankl discovered that meaning often emerges through what he described as three primary sources. The first involves creating or accomplishing something significant. This doesn't necessarily mean changing the world in dramatic ways. It might be as simple as mastering a skill, completing a project that matters to you, or contributing your talents to work that aligns with your values. The satisfaction comes not from external recognition, but from the sense of having added something valuable to the world. The second source of meaning emerges through encountering something or someone beyond ourselves. This might happen through deep relationships where we experience genuine connection and love. It might occur through encounters with beauty, whether in nature, art, music, or literature, that move something deep within us. Or it might arise through moments of what Frankl called self-transcendence, where we temporarily forget our own concerns in service of something larger. These experiences of beauty and connection remind us that we are part of something magnificent and mysterious. When you watch a sunrise and feel that quiet sense of awe, when a piece of music touches something wordless within you, when you feel deeply connected to someone you love, you're experiencing this second pathway to meaning. These moments don't require explanation or analysis. They simply invite us to receive the gift they offer. The third source of meaning, perhaps the most profound, emerges through the attitude we choose when facing unavoidable suffering. This is where Frankl's insights become most revolutionary. He suggested that when we cannot change our circumstances, we can still choose our stance toward them. This choice, this last of human freedoms, transforms us from passive victims into active participants in our own story. This doesn't mean celebrating suffering or seeking it out unnecessarily. Rather, it means recognizing that when pain visits us, whether through loss, illness, disappointment, or any of life's inevitable difficulties, we have the opportunity to meet it with dignity, courage, and grace. The way we carry our burdens becomes part of who we are and what we contribute to the world's store of wisdom and compassion. Think of someone you know who has faced significant challenges with remarkable grace. What you admire isn't their suffering, but their response to it. The patience they've developed through difficult circumstances, the compassion they've gained through their own pain, the strength they've discovered they possess. These qualities didn't exist despite their struggles, but often because of how they chose to meet them. This perspective offers profound comfort during uncertain times. When you're facing challenges that seem beyond your control, when the future feels unclear, when old sources of meaning no longer sustain you, remember that you always retain the freedom to choose your response. This inner freedom cannot be taken away by external circumstances, no matter how constraining they may appear. Frankl often spoke about the importance of being questioned by life rather than questioning life. Instead of demanding that existence explain itself to us, we can listen for what life might be asking of us. This subtle shift in orientation changes everything. Rather than waiting for circumstances to align perfectly before we begin living meaningfully, we start paying attention to the opportunities for response and contribution that already surround us. This questioning by life often comes in forms we don't initially recognize. The difficulty you're facing might be life's way of asking you to develop patience. The loss you're grieving might be inviting you to discover depths of love you didn't know you possessed. The transition you're navigating might be calling you toward purposes you haven't yet imagined. These aren't always comfortable questions, but they're often the ones that lead to the most profound growth. One of the most practical applications of Frankl's insights involves learning to recognize what he called values in action. These are the moments when we live according to our deepest principles, regardless of whether anyone notices or rewards us. When you choose honesty, even when deception would be easier, when you offer kindness to someone who cannot return the favor, when you persist in work that matters to you despite obstacles, you're expressing values through action. These moments of values-based living create what Frankl described as a sense of fulfillment that transcends circumstances. Unlike happiness, which depends on external conditions, fulfillment emerges from the alignment between our actions and our deepest sense of what matters. This alignment is available to us regardless of our situation, age, health, or resources. It requires only our willingness to act in accordance with our values. As you rest tonight, consider the values that feel most important to you. Perhaps it's compassion, creativity, justice, beauty, or connection. These aren't abstract ideals, but living principles that can guide your daily choices. When you align your actions with these values, even in small ways, you're participating in the creation of meaning that no external circumstance can diminish. The beauty of Frankl's approach is that it doesn't require us to have perfect clarity about our life's ultimate purpose. Meaning often emerges gradually through our willingness to respond authentically to whatever each day presents. Like a path that becomes visible only as we walk it, purpose often reveals itself through our engagement rather than through abstract planning. This perspective offers particular comfort during periods of transition and uncertainty. When you don't know exactly where you're heading, when old identities no longer fit, when the future feels unclear, you can still live meaningfully by bringing consciousness and care to your daily responses. The meaning you create today through your choices and interactions becomes the foundation for whatever purposes unfold tomorrow. Frankl understood that meaning isn't something we possess, but something we participate in. It flows through our relationships, our work, our responses to beauty and challenge, our willingness to grow and contribute. Like a river that requires movement to remain healthy, meaning needs our active engagement to stay alive and nourishing. This participation doesn't require constant intensity or dramatic gestures. Often, meaning emerges through the quality of attention we bring to ordinary moments. When you listen deeply to someone who needs to be heard, when you approach a routine task with care and presence, when you choose patience over irritation in a frustrating situation, you're participating in the creation of meaning that enriches both your life and the lives of those around you. The remarkable thing about this approach is how it transforms waiting from frustration into preparation. Instead of feeling stuck when life doesn't unfold according to our timeline, we can use periods of uncertainty to develop qualities that will serve whatever purposes eventually emerge. The patience we cultivate while waiting, the self-understanding we gain during solitude, the compassion we develop through our own struggles, all of these become resources we can offer when opportunities for contribution arise. Tonight, as these ideas settle gently into your awareness, notice how they might already be reflected in your own experience. The moments when you felt most alive and connected, most proud of how you've handled difficulty, most grateful for the opportunity to make a difference in someone's day. These experiences point toward the kinds of meaning that are uniquely yours to discover and cultivate. There's no need to transform everything immediately or to solve the mystery of your life's ultimate direction. The search for meaning isn't a problem to be solved, but a way of engaging with life that brings depth and significance to whatever circumstances we encounter. Like learning to see beauty, developing the capacity for meaning-making is a skill that grows stronger with practice and attention. In the quiet space between today's experiences and tomorrow's possibilities, trust that your willingness to live consciously, to respond with integrity to whatever challenges and opportunities arise, is itself a form of meaning. The very fact that you're reflecting on these questions, that you're open to growth and wisdom, suggests that meaning is already stirring within you, waiting for the right moments to emerge and flourish through your unique combination of circumstances, values, and choices. The gentle wisdom that flows through Frankl's work touches something particularly relevant for those quiet moments when we find ourselves questioning whether our daily efforts truly matter. He understood that meaning doesn't always announce itself with fanfare or dramatic revelation. More often, it whispers to us through the texture of ordinary experience, through the small choices we make when no one is watching, through our willingness to remain present even when presence feels difficult. This quiet availability of meaning becomes especially important when we consider how modern life can sometimes feel fragmented or superficial. We move through our days checking items off lists, responding to notifications, fulfilling obligations that may feel disconnected from any deeper purpose. Yet Frankl's insights suggest that even these routine activities can become doorways to meaning when approached with the right kind of attention. Consider the difference between washing dishes as a chore to be gotten through quickly and washing dishes as a moment of mindful presence, perhaps even gratitude for having food to eat and a home to maintain. The external action remains the same, but the internal experience transforms completely. This transformation doesn't require changing our circumstances, but simply changing our relationship to them. Frankl observed that prisoners who maintained their inner strength often did so by finding ways to preserve their humanity in dehumanizing circumstances. They might share a crust of bread with someone weaker, offer words of encouragement when their own hope was fading, or simply refused to let their captors determine how they would think about their situation. These weren't grand gestures visible to the world, but they represented profound acts of meaning-making that kept the human spirit alive. In our own lives, we face smaller but similar opportunities every day. When someone is rude to us, we can choose to respond with kindness rather than matching their energy. When we encounter someone struggling, we can offer genuine presence rather than empty platitudes or quick fixes. When we face our own disappointments, we can remain curious about what they might teach us rather than simply feeling victimized by circumstances. These choices accumulate over time, creating what we might call a meaningful life, not through any single dramatic decision, but through the consistent practice of choosing responses that align with our deeper values. Like water slowly carving a canyon, these small acts of conscious living gradually shape both our character and our impact on the world around us. One of the most profound aspects of Frankl's understanding is how it addresses the relationship between individual meaning and collective purpose. He recognized that personal fulfillment often emerges through contributing to something larger than ourselves, yet he never suggested that we should sacrifice our individual authenticity for the sake of conformity. Instead, he pointed toward a kind of harmony where our unique gifts and perspectives become offerings to the broader human community. This balance between individual authenticity and collective contribution resolves what can sometimes feel like a tension between self-care and service. When we discover work that genuinely engages our talents and interests while also contributing value to others, when we express our creativity in ways that bring beauty or insight to the world, when we use our life experiences to offer wisdom or support to those facing similar challenges, we're participating in this harmonious exchange. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't require us to choose between personal fulfillment and meaningful contribution. At their deepest level, these aren't opposing forces but complementary aspects of a life well lived. When we're living authentically, aligned with our values and using our genuine gifts, our personal satisfaction naturally flows into contributions that serve something larger. Frankl also understood that meaning often emerges through what we might call conscious suffering. This doesn't mean seeking out pain or believing that suffering is inherently valuable. Rather, it means recognizing that when difficulties are unavoidable, we have the opportunity to transform them into sources of wisdom, compassion, and strength. The parent who becomes more patient through dealing with a challenging child, the person who develops deep empathy through their own experience of loss, the individual who discovers unexpected resilience through facing illness. These transformations represent meaning emerging through conscious engagement with difficulty. This perspective offers profound hope during periods when life feels particularly challenging. Instead of asking why difficult things are happening to us, we can explore what these experiences might be developing within us. What qualities are being strengthened? What understanding is being deepened? What compassion is being cultivated? These questions don't erase the reality of pain, but they create a context within which suffering can become a teacher rather than simply an enemy. The practice of meaning-making also transforms our relationship with uncertainty. Instead of seeing unclear periods as times when we're stuck or off track, we can recognize them as seasons of preparation and possibility. The skills we develop while navigating ambiguity, the patience we cultivate while waiting for clarity, the trust we learn to place in life's unfolding process, all of these become resources that serve us when new opportunities emerge. During these uncertain times, meaning often comes not from having answers, but from our willingness to live the questions, as the poet Rilke once suggested. When we don't know exactly where we're heading, we can still move forward with intention, bringing consciousness and care to whatever presents itself. This forward movement, guided by our values rather than by complete clarity about outcomes, often leads us toward purposes we couldn't have planned or imagined. Frankl's insights also illuminate why some people seem naturally more resilient than others. It's not that they experience fewer difficulties or possess some special immunity to life's challenges. Rather, they've developed, either consciously or intuitively, the ability to find meaning in their experiences. They've learned to see themselves not as passive recipients of whatever life brings, but as active participants in creating significance through their responses. This shift from passive to active engagement represents one of the most empowering realizations available to human beings. It means that no matter what circumstances we face, we always retain some degree of choice about how we relate to those circumstances. This doesn't guarantee that we can control outcomes, but it ensures that we can always influence the story we tell ourselves about what we're experiencing and what it might mean. The development of this active stance toward life often begins with small recognitions and choices. Perhaps you notice that you feel more energized after spending time with certain people, and more drained after time with others. Instead of simply accepting this as unchangeable, you might choose to gradually spend more time with those who nourish your spirit. Maybe you realize that certain activities bring out your best qualities while others leave you feeling diminished. Rather than continuing patterns that don't serve you, you might begin making different choices about how you spend your time and energy. These aren't always easy changes to make, particularly when they involve relationships or commitments that feel obligatory. But Frankl's experience suggests that even in the most constrained circumstances, we retain some degree of choice about our inner response. This inner freedom, properly understood and cultivated, often creates space for outer changes that initially seemed impossible. As these ideas continue to settle into your awareness like gentle rain nourishing seeds planted in rich soil, consider how they might already be taking root in your own experience. Notice the moments when you feel most aligned with your deeper values, most connected to purposes that extend beyond your immediate concerns, most proud of how you've chosen to respond to challenging situations. These experiences point toward the kinds of meaning that are uniquely yours to cultivate and express. The remarkable thing about Frankl's discoveries is how they remain relevant across different life circumstances and historical periods. Whether we're facing dramatic challenges or navigating ordinary complexities, whether we're in seasons of abundance or scarcity, clarity or confusion, the basic human capacity for meaning-making remains available. What changes isn't the possibility of living meaningfully, but our recognition of that possibility and our skill in accessing it. This recognition often comes gradually attention to what moves, through our willingness to pay us, what calls to us, what makes us feel more alive and connected. Sometimes meaning announces itself clearly through experiences of beauty, love, or transcendence that feel unmistakably significant. Other times it emerges quietly through the satisfaction we feel when we have handled a difficult situation with grace, the peace that comes from acting in alignment with our values, or the joy we experience when we've contributed something valuable to another person's life. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, there's no need to solve the puzzle of your ultimate life purpose, or to transform every challenge into a source of meaning. The invitation is simpler and more immediate, to remain open to the possibilities for significance that each day offers, to trust in your capacity to create meaning through your choices and responses, and to remember that this capacity is as natural and reliable as your ability to breathe. In the gentle space between waking and sleeping, let yourself rest in the knowledge that meaning isn't something you have to earn or achieve, but something you can discover and participate in through your willingness to engage authentically with whatever life presents. Like a river that finds its way to the sea, not through force, but through persistent, patient movement, your life can flow toward purposes that feel genuinely meaningful through your continued openness to growth, connection, and conscious response to both the joys and challenges that make up a human existence. The wisdom that emerged from humanity's darkest hour continues to offer light not because it promises easy answers or guarantees happy endings, but because it reminds us of our fundamental capacity to find significance in whatever circumstances we encounter. This capacity doesn't depend on external validation, perfect conditions, or complete understanding. It requires only our willingness to remain present, to choose responses that align with our deepest values, and to trust that meaning can emerge through our authentic engagement with life, one moment, one choice, one conscious response at a time. The profound simplicity of Frankl's approach becomes especially clear when we consider how he transformed psychological theory through lived experience. Unlike many philosophers who develop their ideas in the comfort of academic settings, Frankl tested his understanding of human nature in conditions where theory either proved true or became irrelevant. This grounding in reality gives his insights a weight and authenticity that purely theoretical approaches often lack. What emerges from this crucible of experience is a psychology that doesn't separate thinking from feeling, or individual growth from community responsibility. Frankl understood that we are whole beings living in a relationship with others, and that our search for meaning naturally leads us toward connection and contribution. This integration offers a refreshing alternative to approaches that focus solely on personal happiness or individual achievement. One of the most practical aspects of Frankl's work involves learning to recognize what he called the existential vacuum. This is the emptiness that arises when we have everything we thought we wanted but still feel unfulfilled. It's the restlessness that visits us in quiet moments, the sense that despite our accomplishments and possessions, something essential is missing. Rather than seeing this emptiness as a personal failing, Frankl viewed it as a natural signal that we're ready to engage with deeper questions about purpose and meaning. This vacuum often appears during life transitions, when children leave home, when careers end, when health changes, when relationships shift. We may find ourselves confronting questions we've been too busy to consider. Who am I beyond my roles and responsibilities? What truly matters to me? What do I want my life to stand for? These questions can feel unsettling at first, but they represent invitations to discover sources of meaning that don't depend on external circumstances. The beauty of recognizing the existential vacuum is that it points us toward what's missing, rather than what's wrong with us. If you're feeling restless despite having what others might consider a good life, this isn't necessarily a sign that you should change everything dramatically. Instead, it might indicate that you're ready to engage more consciously with purposes that align with your deeper values. Frankl distinguished between different types of values that can serve as sources of meaning. Creative values emerge when we bring something new into existence, whether through art, innovation, problem-solving, or any form of contribution that expresses our unique perspective and abilities. These don't have to be grand or publicly recognized. The teacher who finds new ways to help students understand difficult concepts, the parent who creates traditions that bring family together, the friend who knows exactly how to lift someone's spirits, all are expressing creative values. Experiential values, on the other hand, emerge through our capacity to receive what life offers. This might happen through deep relationships where we experience genuine intimacy and connection. It might occur through encounters with beauty that move something profound within us, whether in nature, art, music, or literature. Or it might arise through moments of transcendence where we feel connected to something larger than our individual concerns. These experiential values remind us that meaning doesn't always require us to produce or achieve something. Sometimes the most meaningful moments involve our willingness to be present and receptive to what's already available. The parent who truly listens to their child's concerns, the friend who sits quietly with someone in grief, the person who pauses to appreciate a sunrise, all are engaging with experiential values that enrich life without requiring anything to be accomplished. The third category, attitudinal values, emerges through our response to unavoidable circumstances. When we face situations we cannot change, we still retain the freedom to choose our attitude. This isn't about forcing positive emotions or pretending difficulties aren't real. Rather, it's about recognizing that our stance toward unavoidable challenges becomes part of who we are and what we contribute to the world. This freedom of attitude represents perhaps the most profound form of human liberty. External circumstances may constrain our choices dramatically, but they cannot determine our inner response unless we allow them to. The person who maintains dignity in the face of illness, the individual who chooses forgiveness despite being wronged, the one who finds ways to help others even while struggling personally, all are exercising this fundamental human freedom. What's particularly comforting about Frankl's understanding is how these different sources of meaning can complement and support each other throughout our lives. During periods when creative expression flows easily, we might find deep satisfaction in bringing new things into existence. During other times, we might discover meaning primarily through our relationships and experiences of beauty. And during challenging periods, we might find that our greatest contribution lies in how we meet difficulties with grace and courage. This flexibility means that meaning remains available even when our circumstances change dramatically. The artist who loses the ability to create might discover new purposes through teaching or encouraging other artists. The athlete whose career ends due to injury might find meaning in coaching or in demonstrating resilience through their recovery process. The parent whose children grow up might explore creative expressions that were impossible during busy child-rearing years. Frankl also understood that the search for meaning often involves what he called self-transcendence. This doesn't require achieving some elevated spiritual state or becoming selfless in an unrealistic way. Instead, it involves the recognition that our lives gain significance when they point towards something beyond our immediate personal concerns. This might be as intimate as bringing genuine presence to our relationships, or as expansive as dedicating ourselves to causes that will outlive us. The practice of self-transcendence often begins with small shifts in perspective. Instead of asking what we can get from a situation, we might ask what we can contribute to it. Rather than focusing primarily on our own comfort and convenience, we might consider how our actions affect others. This doesn't mean ignoring our own needs, but rather expanding our circle of concern to include purposes larger than our individual satisfaction. One of the most profound applications of Frankl's insights involves learning to work with, rather than against, the inevitable changes that life brings. Instead of viewing aging, loss, or transitions as purely negative experiences, we can explore what these changes might make possible. The limitations that come with physical aging might create opportunities for developing wisdom and patience. The loss of a role that defined us might open space for discovering aspects of ourselves that were previously unexplored. This doesn't mean celebrating difficulty or pretending that losses aren't genuinely painful. Rather, it means remaining curious about what new forms of meaning might emerge even from unwelcome changes. The person who loses their sight might develop extraordinary sensitivity to sound and touch. The individual who faces serious illness might discover depths of courage and appreciation they never knew they possessed. The one who experiences betrayal might develop profound compassion for others who have been wounded. These transformations don't happen automatically or easily. They require our conscious participation, our willingness to remain open to growth even during painful periods. But when they do occur, they often surprise us with their depth and authenticity. The meaning that emerges through conscious engagement with difficulty has a weight and substance that can sustain us through future challenges. Frankl's approach also illuminates the relationship between individual meaning and social responsibility. He understood that personal fulfillment and community contribution aren't competing values but complementary aspects of a life well lived. When we discover work that genuinely engages our abilities while serving others, when we express our creativity in ways that bring beauty or insight to the world, when we use our experiences to offer wisdom or support to those facing similar challenges, we're participating in this harmonious exchange. This integration of personal and social meaning offers guidance for navigating the complex ethical landscape of modern life. Instead of choosing between self-care and service to others, We can seek ways of living that honour both our individual authenticity and our responsibility to the broader community. This might mean finding work that aligns with our values and abilities while contributing to the common good. It might involve using our unique life experiences to help others facing similar challenges. Or it might simply mean bringing more consciousness and care to our daily interactions. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't require us to become different people or to develop extraordinary capabilities. Instead, it invites us to more fully become who we already are, to express our genuine gifts in service of purposes that feel meaningful to us. This alignment between authenticity and contribution creates a kind of natural harmony where personal satisfaction flows into offerings that serve something larger. As you rest tonight, consider how these different pathways to meaning might already be present in your life. Perhaps you've experienced the satisfaction that comes from creating something that reflects your unique perspective. Maybe you've known the joy of deep connection with others, or moments when beauty moves something profound within you. Or you might recognize times when you've met difficulty with dignity and discovered strengths you didn't know you possessed. These experiences, whether dramatic or quiet, point toward the kinds of meaning that are available to all of us. They remind us that significance doesn't depend on external recognition or extraordinary circumstances. Instead, it emerges through our willingness to engage authentically with whatever life presents, to remain open to both giving and receiving, to choose responses that align with our deepest values. The search for meaning, as Frankl understood it, isn't a problem to be solved once and for all. It's an ongoing conversation with life, a continuous process of discovery and creation that evolves as we do. Sometimes this conversation feels clear and purposeful. Other times it involves patient waiting, careful listening, and trust that meaning will emerge as we continue to engage with openness and integrity. In the gentle space between today's experiences and tomorrow's possibilities, trust that your willingness to reflect on these questions, to remain open to growth and wisdom, is itself meaningful. The very fact that you're considering how to live more consciously, how to respond more authentically to both challenges and opportunities, suggests that the search for meaning is already alive within you. There's no need to transform everything immediately or to achieve perfect clarity about your life's ultimate direction. Like a garden that grows gradually through seasons of planting, tending, and harvesting, a meaningful life unfolds through our continued attention to what matters most deeply, our willingness to contribute whatever gifts are uniquely ours to offer, and our trust in the process of becoming we're meant to be. Tonight, as these reflections settle into the quiet spaces of your mind like seeds, finding their place in fertile soil, remember that meaning isn't something you have to create from nothing. It's something you can discover and participate in through your authentic engagement with life, one choice at a time, one conscious response after another, one moment of presence offered to whatever this existence has placed before you. The wisdom that flows through Frankl's understanding becomes particularly accessible when we recognize how meaning often emerges not through dramatic revelations, but through the gradual accumulation of conscious choices. Like morning light slowly filling a room, significance builds through our daily practice of paying attention to what truly matters, responding with intention rather than mere reaction, and maintaining connection to purposes that extend beyond our immediate concerns. This gentle approach to meaning-making offers profound comfort for those times when life feels overwhelming or unclear. Instead of waiting for lightning bolt moments of clarity about our ultimate purpose, we can begin exactly where we are, with whatever opportunities for authentic response present themselves today. The conversation we have with the lonely neighbour, the care we bring to routine tasks, the patience we practice during frustrating moments. These seemingly small acts accumulate into a life of significance. Frankl discovered something remarkable about human resilience that applies far beyond extreme circumstances. He noticed that people who maintained their inner strength weren't necessarily those who had clear answers about why they were suffering or what the future would bring. Instead, they were individuals who had developed what we might call responsive awareness. They remained alert to possibilities for meaning even in the darkest moments, ready to recognize and act upon opportunities for dignity, kindness, or growth whenever such chances appeared. This responsive awareness transforms our relationship with uncertainty. Instead of seeing unclear periods as times when we're stuck waiting for life to begin, we can recognize them as seasons rich with possibility. The skills we develop while navigating ambiguity, the patience we cultivate while waiting for clarity, the trust we learn to place in life's unfolding process, all of these become inner resources that serve us regardless of what external circumstances eventually emerge. Consider how this might reshape your approach to current uncertainties. Rather than focusing primarily on when things will become clear or how situations will resolve, you might explore what this period of not knowing is developing within you. Perhaps it's teaching you to be more present with what is, rather than constantly reaching toward what might be. Maybe it's inviting you to discover sources of stability that don't depend on external predictability. Or it could be preparing you for future opportunities that require exactly the kind of patience and adaptability you're cultivating now. Frankl also understood that meaning often emerges through what we might call conscious receiving. This involves our willingness to be genuinely moved by beauty, to allow ourselves to be touched by others' experiences, to remain open to moments of wonder or transcendence that visit us unexpectedly. In our achievement-oriented culture, we often overlook this receptive dimension of meaningful living, focusing so intensely on what we can accomplish that we miss what life is offering us as gifts. The practice of conscious receiving might begin with something as simple as pausing to truly taste your morning coffee, allowing yourself to be fully present with its warmth and flavour. Or it might involve stopping to really listen when someone shares something important with you, receiving their trust as the gift it is rather than immediately planning your response. These moments of genuine receptivity create spaces where meaning can emerge naturally without forcing or striving. This receptive capacity becomes especially important during periods of grief or loss. When life has taken something precious from us, our impulse might be to close down, to protect ourselves from further pain by becoming less open to experience. Yet Frankl's insights suggest that even in grief, possibilities for meaning remain available. Sometimes the deepest significance emerges not from what we achieve despite our losses, but from how fully we allow ourselves to feel what has been lost, how completely we honour what was precious, and how gently we remain open to whatever forms of healing or growth might eventually emerge. The person who loses a beloved partner might discover meanings they never expected through the process of learning to carry love forward in new ways. The parent whose child faces serious challenges might find purposes they couldn't have imagined through developing patience, advocacy skills, or deep compassion for other families in similar situations. These meanings don't compensate for the difficulties or make them worthwhile in some calculated sense. Rather, they represent the human capacity to find significance even in unwelcome circumstances. Frankl's understanding also illuminates the relationship between individual meaning and what we might call collective flourishing. He recognized that personal fulfillment and community well-being aren't separate concerns but interconnected aspects of human thriving. When we discover and express our authentic gifts, when we respond to life's challenges with wisdom and grace, when we contribute our unique perspectives to the broader human conversation, we're participating in something larger than our individual stories. This participation doesn't require grand gestures or public recognition. The teacher who brings genuine enthusiasm to their classroom, the healthcare worker who offers presence along with professional care, the neighbour who checks on elderly residents during difficult weather, all are contributing to collective meaning through their individual choices to live consciously and caringly. The beauty of this interconnection is that it resolves what can sometimes feel like a tension between taking care of ourselves and serving others. When we're living authentically, aligned with our deepest values and expressing our genuine capabilities, our personal satisfaction naturally flows into contributions that serve the broader community. This isn't about self-sacrifice or ignoring our own needs, but about recognizing that individual fulfillment and collective well-being often arise together when we're living with integrity and awareness. One of the most practical applications of Frankl's insights involves learning to recognize what we might call meaning opportunities in ordinary situations. These are moments when we have the chance to express our values through action, to respond to someone's need with genuine care, or to approach routine tasks with presence and attention. Unlike dramatic opportunities for heroism or achievement, these moments are available constantly, woven into the fabric of daily life. Perhaps you notice that a colleague seems stressed and overwhelmed. A meaning opportunity might involve offering genuine support, whether through practical help or simply through listening presence. Maybe you're stuck in traffic and feeling frustrated. This could become a chance to practice patience and acceptance, transforming a potentially negative experience into one of inner growth. Or you might find yourself with unexpected free time, creating space to engage with something that nourishes your spirit or contributes value to others. The key to recognizing these opportunities lies in maintaining what Frankl called an attitude of responsiveness. Instead of moving through our days on autopilot, focused primarily on getting through tasks or avoiding discomfort, we can cultivate awareness of the choices that each moment presents. This doesn't mean becoming hypervigilant or constantly analyzing our options, but rather developing a gentle alertness to possibilities for meaningful response. This responsive awareness often begins with small practices. You might start each day by setting an intention to notice opportunities for kindness or connection. Perhaps you could create brief pauses throughout your day to check in with yourself about how you're choosing to engage with whatever situation you're facing. Or you might develop the habit of reflecting each evening on moments when you felt most aligned with your values and purposes. These practices gradually develop what we might call meaning-making muscles, inner capacities for recognizing and responding to significance that become stronger through regular use. Like learning to see beauty or developing appreciation for music, the ability to find and create meaning grows more refined and accessible through attention and practice. Frankl also understood that meaning often emerges through what he described as tragic optimism. This involves the capacity to maintain hope and purpose, even while fully acknowledging life's difficulties and uncertainties. It's neither naive optimism that denies problems nor cynical pessimism that sees only darkness, but rather a mature perspective that recognizes both suffering and possibility as authentic aspects of human experience. This tragic optimism becomes particularly valuable during periods when the world seems filled with challenges beyond our individual control. Whether we're facing personal difficulties, community problems, or global crises, the practice of tragic optimism allows us to remain engaged and purposeful without being overwhelmed by the magnitude of what needs attention. Instead of becoming paralyzed by problems we cannot solve completely, we can focus on the contributions we can make within our sphere of influence. The parent worried about their children's future can invest in creating a loving, stable home environment, while also engaging in community efforts to address larger concerns. The person distressed by social injustice can work for change in ways that align with their particular skills and circumstances, while also practicing the kinds of respect and understanding they want to see more of in the world. This approach recognizes that meaning often emerges not from solving problems completely, but from engaging authentically with whatever challenges life presents. The significance lies in the quality of our engagement, the values we express through our responses, and the growth we experience through meeting difficulties with consciousness and care. As these reflections continue to settle into your awareness like gentle snow covering a quiet landscape, notice how they might illuminate aspects of your own experience. that you hadn't fully recognized before. Perhaps you'll remember times when you felt most alive and connected, moments when you made a difference through small acts of kindness, or periods when you discovered strength through facing challenges with dignity. These memories aren't just pleasant recollections, but glimpses of your own capacity for meaning-making. They point toward the kinds of significance that are uniquely yours to create and express, the particular ways your life can contribute to the larger human story of growth, connection, and conscious response to whatever existence offers. Frankl's insights remind us that we are not passive observers of life, but active participants in creating significance through our choices, our relationships, and our responses to both joy and difficulty. This participation doesn't require perfect understanding or complete clarity about our ultimate direction. It simply asks for our willingness to remain open, to stay curious about what purposes might be calling to us, and to trust that meaning can emerge through our authentic engagement with whatever each day presents. The search for meaning, as Frankl understood it, isn't a destination we arrive at, but a way of travelling through our days. It's available whether we're in seasons of clarity or confusion, abundance or challenge, connection or solitude. What changes isn't the possibility of living meaningfully, but our recognition of that possibility and our skill in accessing it through conscious choice and responsive awareness. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, let these ideas settle gently into the quiet spaces of your mind. There's no need to solve everything at once or to transform your entire approach to life before morning comes. The invitation is simpler and more immediate, to trust in your natural capacity for creating meaning, to remain open to the opportunities for significance that surround you, and to remember that this capacity is as reliable and available as your ability to breathe. In the peaceful space between consciousness and sleep, allow yourself to rest in the knowledge that meaning isn't something you have to earn through extraordinary achievements or perfect understanding. It's something you can discover and participate in through your willingness to live consciously, to respond with integrity to whatever challenges and opportunities arise, and to contribute your unique gifts to the ongoing human conversation about what makes life worth living. The wisdom that emerged from humanity's darkest moments continues to offer light, not because it promises easy answers or guarantees happy endings, but because it reveals our fundamental capacity to find significance in whatever circumstances we encounter. This capacity doesn't depend on external validation, ideal conditions, or complete clarity about the future. It requires only our willingness to remain present, to choose responses that align with our deepest values, and to trust that significance can emerge through our authentic engagement with life. One moment at a time, one conscious choice after another, one gentle act of meaning, making flowing naturally into the next. The profound simplicity of what Frankl discovered becomes even more apparent when we consider how his insights apply to the quiet struggles we all face in modern life. While most of us will never encounter the extreme circumstances he endured, we do face our own versions of the fundamental questions he explored. What sustains us when comfort disappears? How do we find direction when the path ahead seems unclear? What remains solid when everything familiar begins to shift? These questions visit us during life's inevitable transitions. When careers end unexpectedly, when relationships change in ways we didn't anticipate, when health challenges force us to reconsider our assumptions about the future. In these moments, we're confronted with the same choice that Frankl witnessed in the camps. We can focus on what's been taken from us, or we can explore what remains within our power to create and contribute. What makes Frankl's approach so enduring is its recognition that meaning doesn't emerge from the absence of difficulty, but from our conscious engagement with whatever difficulties we encounter. This engagement transforms us from passive recipients of whatever life brings into active participants in shaping our response to those experiences. This shift in perspective, from victim to participant, represents one of the most empowering realizations available to human consciousness. Consider how this might apply to the smaller challenges that visit us regularly. The frustration we feel when technology doesn't cooperate, the disappointment that comes when plans fall through, the anxiety that arises when facing uncertain outcomes. These everyday difficulties offer us constant opportunities to practice the same principles that sustained people through far greater challenges. We can meet frustration with curiosity about what it might teach us about patience. We can respond to disappointment by exploring what new possibilities might now be available. We can approach anxiety as information about what matters deeply to us, rather than simply as discomfort to be avoided. This practice of conscious engagement doesn't eliminate negative emotions or transform every difficulty into a positive experience. Rather, it creates space around our challenges, allowing us to respond thoughtfully rather than react automatically. This space, this pause between stimulus and response, contains within it the freedom that Frankl identified as fundamentally human. Even when we cannot control what happens to us, we can influence how we relate to what happens. The cultivation of this responsive capacity often begins with developing what we might call witness consciousness. This involves learning to observe our own reactions with gentle curiosity rather than immediate judgment. When we notice ourselves becoming frustrated, instead of either suppressing the feeling or being overwhelmed by it, we can pause and explore what this frustration might be telling us about our needs, values, or expectations. This witnessing awareness creates what Frankl called the space between stimulus and response. In that space lies our freedom to choose how we engage with whatever we're experiencing. This choice doesn't guarantee that we can change external circumstances, but it ensures that we always retain some degree of agency in our own experience. The practice of meaning-making also involves what we might call value archaeology. This is the process of excavating what truly matters to us from beneath the layers of should and supposed to that often accumulate over time. Sometimes we discover that we've been pursuing goals that don't actually align with our deeper values, or that we've been avoiding challenges that could lead to genuine growth. This excavation process often reveals surprising sources of meaning that we hadn't previously recognized. The person who discovers satisfaction in organizing their living space might realize they value creating order and beauty in their environment. The individual who feels energized by helping friends solve problems might recognize a calling toward counseling or teaching. The one who finds peace in gardening might understand their deep need for connection with natural cycles and growth processes. These discoveries don't always point toward dramatic life changes. Sometimes they simply illuminate ways to bring more consciousness and intention to activities we're already engaged in. The parent who realizes they value nurturing growth might approach their interactions with children differently, seeing each conversation as an opportunity to support their development. The employee who identifies their appreciation for efficiency might find new satisfaction in streamlining processes at work, contributing value while expressing something authentic about themselves. Frankl understood that meaning often emerges through what he called the will to meaning, rather than the will to pleasure or power. This distinction becomes particularly relevant when we consider how contemporary culture often suggests that happiness should be our primary goal. While pleasure and comfort certainly enhance life when they arise naturally, pursuing them directly often leads to a kind of emptiness that no amount of external satisfaction can fill. The will to meaning, on the other hand, points us toward purposes that can sustain us even during difficult periods. When we're focused on contributing something valuable, on growing through our challenges, on expressing our authentic gifts, we often discover a satisfaction that doesn't depend on external circumstances. This isn't guaranteed happiness, but it's a more reliable foundation for what we might call existential stability. This stability becomes people encounter what psychologists call the existential vacuum. This is the emptiness that can arise when external markers of success have been achieved, but a sense of deeper purpose remains elusive. the successful professional who wonders if their work truly matters, the parent whose children have grown and left home, the person who has accumulated material comforts but still feels something essential is missing. All are encountering invitations to engage with deeper questions about meaning and purpose. Rather than seeing this emptiness as a crisis to be quickly resolved, Frankl would suggest approaching it as valuable information about our readiness to engage with more authentic sources of meaning. The restlessness we feel might be indicating that we've outgrown purposes that once sustained us and are ready to discover new ways of contributing and connecting. This perspective transforms what could feel like a personal failure into a natural part of human development. Just as we outgrow clothes that once fit perfectly, we sometimes outgrow identities and purposes that served us well during earlier life stages. The challenge isn't to force old meanings to continue working, but to remain open to what new purposes might be calling to us. The process of discovering these new purposes often requires what Frankl called the courage to be imperfect. This involves our willingness to explore unfamiliar territories, to risk failure or awkwardness as we experiment with different ways of contributing and connecting. The executive who takes pottery classes, the retiree who volunteers with literacy programs, the introvert who joins a community organization, all are demonstrating this courage to explore beyond their established comfort zones. This exploration often reveals capabilities and interests we didn't know we possessed. The person who discovers they enjoy teaching might uncover a natural ability to explain complex concepts clearly. The individual who tries gardening might find they have an intuitive understanding of growing things. These discoveries aren't just pleasant surprises, but potential doorways to new sources of meaning and contribution. Frankl also recognized that meaning often emerges through what we might call conscious legacy creation. This doesn't necessarily involve leaving behind great works or achieving public recognition. Rather, it involves our awareness of how our choices and actions ripple outward, influencing others and contributing to the ongoing human story of growth and understanding. The parent who models patience and kindness is creating a legacy through their children's increased capacity for these qualities. The teacher who inspires curiosity leaves traces in every student who goes on to approach learning with enthusiasm. The friend who listens deeply contributes to their companion's sense of being valued and understood. These influences often extend far beyond what we can see or measure, creating chains of positive impact that continue long after the original actions. This awareness of our potential influence transforms ordinary interactions into opportunities for conscious contribution. The conversation we have with a struggling colleague might be exactly what they need to feel less alone. The patience we show while waiting in line might ease the stress of everyone around us. The genuine appreciation we express to service workers might be the bright moment in an otherwise difficult day. These aren't grand gestures that will be remembered by history, but they represent the kind of quiet heroism that makes daily life more meaningful for everyone involved. They remind us that significance doesn't require special circumstances or extraordinary abilities. It simply asks for our willingness to bring consciousness and care to whatever interactions each day presents. The practice of conscious legacy creation also transforms our relationship with mortality. Instead of seeing death as the enemy of meaning, we can recognize our limited time as what gives urgency and preciousness to our choices. The awareness that our opportunities to contribute and connect are finite can motivate us to engage more fully with whatever purposes feel most authentic and valuable. This doesn't mean living with morbid preoccupation about death, but rather with heightened appreciation for the gift of conscious existence. Each day becomes an opportunity to express our values, to offer our gifts, to participate in the ongoing creation of meaning through our responses to whatever life presents. Frankl often spoke about the importance of being worthy of our sufferings, but he also understood the equal importance of being worthy of our joys. This involves our capacity to receive good things fully to allow ourselves to be genuinely moved by beauty, love, and moments of transcendence. In our busy, distracted culture, we often rush past experiences that could nourish us deeply if we simply pause to receive them completely. The practice of conscious receiving might begin with something as simple as allowing yourself to truly savor a delicious meal rather than eating while distracted by screens or worries. It might involve pausing to feel genuine gratitude when someone shows you kindness rather than quickly moving on to the next task. Or it could mean stopping to fully appreciate a beautiful sunset rather than simply noting it and hurrying past. These moments of conscious receiving create spaces where meaning can emerge naturally. They remind us that we are not just producers and achievers, but also recipients of countless gifts that life offers freely. The capacity to be moved by beauty, to feel connected to others, to experience wonder at the mystery of existence. These are sources of meaning that don't require us to accomplish anything specific, but simply to remain open and present. As you settle deeper into rest this evening, consider how these insights might gently reshape your relationship with both the challenges and gift that each day brings. There's no pressure to transform everything immediately or to solve all questions about your life's ultimate direction. The invitation is simpler: to remain curious about what purposes might be calling to you, to stay open to opportunities for conscious response and contribution, and to trust that your willingness to engage authentically with life is itself meaningful. The search for meaning that Frankl described isn't a problem to be solved once and definitively, but a continuous conversation with existence. Sometimes this conversation feels clear and purposeful. Other times it requires patient listening, gentle exploration, and trust that significance will emerge through our continued willingness to show up authentically to whatever each day presents. In the quiet space between today's experiences and tomorrow's possibilities, allow yourself to rest in the knowledge that meaning isn't something you have to create through force or achievement. It's something you can discover and participate in through your openness to growth, your willingness to contribute whatever gifts are uniquely yours to offer, and your trust in the process of becoming who you're meant to be. The wisdom that emerged from humanity's darkest hour continues to illuminate ordinary life because it reveals something essential about human nature: our capacity to find significance in any circumstance through our conscious engagement with whatever that circumstance presents. This capacity doesn't depend on ideal conditions, complete understanding, or external validation. It requires only our willingness to remain present, to choose responses that align with our deepest values, and to trust that our authentic participation in life contributes something valuable to the larger human story of meaning and connection. Tonight, as these reflections settle gently into your consciousness like moonlight filtering through window blinds, remember that the same capacity for meaning-making that sustained people through unimaginable difficulties is available to you in navigating the complexities and uncertainties of your own life. This capacity is as natural as breathing, as reliable as dawn, and as close as your next conscious choice to engage with life, not merely as something that happens to you, but as something you actively participate in creating through your presence, your responses, and your willingness to contribute whatever light you carry to the ongoing human experience of finding purpose in existence itself. What becomes particularly profound about Frankl's understanding is how it addresses the relationship between suffering and growth without romanticizing pain or suggesting that we should seek out difficulties. He observed something remarkable in himself and others during those dark years, when people were stripped of everything external: possessions, roles, even their names, capacity to choose. What remained was their inner stance. This choice, this fundamental human freedom, could not be taken away no matter how dire, and uncertainty struggles with extraordinary relevance for our daily circumstances. This insight carries disappointment, loss, when we lose a job we valued, when a relationship ends unexpectedly, when illness disrupts our plans. We face a scaled-down version of the same choice that prisoners confronted. We can become bitter and defeated, or we can remain curious about what these experiences might teach us, what strengths they might reveal, what purposes they might illuminate. The key insight here isn't that suffering is good or necessary, but that when difficulties are unavoidable, they can become teachers rather than simply enemies. The person who learns patience through caring for an aging parent, the individual who discovers resilience through financial hardship, the one who develops deep empathy through their own experience of loss, all are demonstrating this human capacity to extract meaning from unwelcome circumstances. Frankl noticed that this transformation from victim to participant often began with a subtle shift in the questions we ask ourselves. Instead of demanding why this is what this experience is happening to me, we might explore asking of me. Instead of focusing primarily on what's been taken away, we can investigate what remains within our power to give. These aren't always easy questions to ask, especially when we're in the midst of genuine difficulty. But they point us toward our capacity for active response rather than passive endurance. This shift becomes particularly valuable when we consider how modern life can sometimes feel overwhelming or meaningless despite material comfort. Many people today experience what Frankl called the existential vacuum, an emptiness that arises when external needs are met but deeper purposes remain unclear. This isn't a personal failing, but often a sign that we're ready to engage with more authentic sources of meaning. The restlessness we feel during comfortable but unfulfilling periods might be life's way of inviting us to explore what truly matters to us. The boredom that visits us when routine activities lose their appeal could be pointing toward our need for growth or contribution. The anxiety we experience about the future might reflect our deep desire to use our time meaningfully. These uncomfortable feelings aren't problems to be quickly solved, but information about what our spirit's longing for. Frankl understood that meaning often emerges through what he called self-transcendence, our capacity to connect with purposes that extend beyond our immediate concerns. This doesn't require dramatic self-sacrifice or becoming someone we're not. More often, it involves recognizing how our individual gifts and experiences can serve something larger than our personal satisfaction. The teacher who discovers that their real joy comes not from the subject they teach, but from witnessing students grow in confidence. The artist who finds deeper purpose when their work brings beauty or insight to others. The parent who realizes that their most meaningful contribution lies not in their professional achievements, but in raising children who will carry kindness into the world. These realizations don't diminish individual fulfillment, but expand it by connecting personal satisfaction to broader purposes. This connection between individual meaning and collective contribution offers a different approach to the work-life balance that so many people struggle with today. Instead of seeing personal fulfillment and service to others as competing demands, we can explore ways of living that honor both our authentic nature and our responsibility to the broader community. This might mean finding work that aligns with our values while contributing to the common good. It could involve using our unique life experiences to help others facing similar challenges, or it might simply mean bringing more consciousness and care to whatever roles we currently occupy. The beauty of this integrated approach is that it often leads to what we might call sustainable fulfillment. When our personal satisfaction flows naturally into contributions that serve others, when our individual growth enhances our capacity to help and understand, we discover a kind of meaning that doesn't depend on external validation or constant achievement. This doesn't guarantee constant happiness, but it provides a foundation that can sustain us through both difficult and joyful periods. Frankl also recognized that meaning often reveals itself gradually rather than through sudden revelation. Like a photograph slowly developing in a dark room, Our sense of purpose typically emerges through our continued engagement with life rather than through abstract planning or forced introspection. This gradual unfolding offers comfort during periods when we feel uncertain about our direction or question whether we're making progress toward anything significant. The person who volunteers regularly might gradually discover they have a calling towards social work. The individual who enjoys organizing community events might realize they're drawn to bringing people together in healing ways. The one who finds satisfaction in learning new skills might understand their deep appreciation for growth and curiosity. These recognitions often arise not through dramatic moments of clarity, but through patient attention to what energizes us, what we're naturally drawn toward, what feels authentic and life-giving. This organic emergence of purpose suggests that we don't need to have our entire life figured out before we can begin living meaningfully. We can start exactly where we are, paying attention to what calls to us, following threads of interest and engagement, trusting that our authentic participation in life will gradually reveal the kinds of contribution that are uniquely ours to make. One of the most practical applications of Frankl's insights involves learning to recognize what we might call meaning moments in ordinary experience. These are instances when we feel particularly alive and connected, when our actions align with our deeper values, when we sense that what we're doing matters in ways that extend beyond immediate results. Perhaps it's the satisfaction you feel when you've helped someone understand something complex. Maybe it's the peace that comes from spending time in nature, feeling connected to something vast and enduring. It might be the joy you experience when creating something with your hands, or the sense of rightness that arises when you've acted with integrity in a difficult situation. These moments, however brief, point toward the kinds of meaning that are available to us when we're living authentically. The practice involves paying attention to these experiences rather than rushing past them. What was happening when you felt most alive and engaged? What values were you expressing through your actions? What needs were being met, either yours or others? These moments of reflection help us identify patterns that can guide future choices about how we spend our time and energy. Frankl understood that this attention to meaning moments often reveals sources of purpose that don't require dramatic life changes. Sometimes the most profound transformation involves bringing more consciousness and intention to activities we're already engaged in. The parent who recognizes their joy in nurturing growth might approach interactions with their children differently, seeing each conversation as an opportunity to support development. The employee who identifies their satisfaction in solving problems might find new engagement with their current work, while also exploring whether this points toward other possibilities. This approach honors both our need for stability and our desire for growth. We don't have to abandon everything familiar to begin living more meaningfully. Instead, we can start by bringing more awareness and intention to our current circumstances, exploring how they might become vehicles for expressing our authentic nature and serving purposes we care about. The concept of meaning that Frankl developed also addresses the relationship between individual purpose and what we might call historical context. He understood that we live in specific times and places that present particular opportunities and challenges. Part of finding meaning involves recognizing how our unique combination of abilities, experiences, and circumstances positions us to contribute to the needs of our particular moment in history. The person with technical skills during a time of rapid technological change has opportunities to help others navigate these transitions. The individual with experience overcoming addiction can offer hope and practical wisdom to those facing similar struggles. The one who's learned to find peace despite anxiety might share insights that help others during increasingly stressful times. These contributions don't require being perfect or having solved every personal challenge. They simply ask us to offer what we've learned through our own journey. This historical dimension of meaning provides context for understanding why certain purposes call to us at particular times in our lives. the challenges our generation faces, the needs in our communities, the gaps in understanding or support that we're uniquely positioned to address, all contribute to shaping what kinds of contribution feel most authentic and urgent. As you continue settling into rest, consider how these ideas might illuminate aspects of your own experience that you hadn't fully recognized. Perhaps you'll remember conversations where you felt you made a real difference, activities that brought unexpected satisfaction, or difficult periods that ultimately led to growth or insight. These memories aren't just pleasant recollections, but glimpses of your own capacity for creating meaning through conscious engagement with whatever life presents. The search for meaning, as Frankl understood it, doesn't require extraordinary circumstances or exceptional abilities. It simply asks for our willingness to remain open to the possibilities for significance that surround us, to pay attention to what calls to us authentically, and to trust that our engagement with life contributes something valuable, even when we can't see the full impact of our choices. In this gentle space between waking thoughts and the onset of dreams, allow these reflections to settle naturally into your awareness. There's no need to solve everything tonight or to emerge tomorrow with complete clarity about your life's ultimate direction. The wisdom that flows through Frankl's understanding suggests that meaning emerges through our continued participation in life, rather than through perfect planning or final answers. What matters is your willingness to remain curious about what purposes might be calling to you, your openness to growing through whatever challenges arise, and your trust that your authentic engagement with each day contributes threads to the larger tapestry of human meaning and understanding. These threads may seem small individually, but together they help weave the fabric of a life lived consciously, purposefully, and with deep appreciation for the profound opportunity that conscious existence represents towards sleep carry. Tonight, as you drift with you the gentle reminder that your capacity for creating meaning is as natural and reliable as your heartbeat. It doesn't require perfect circumstances or complete understanding. It simply asks for your presence, your willingness to engage authentically with whatever each moment offers, and your trust that this engagement itself is meaningful, contributing something precious to the ongoing human story of finding purpose and significance in the magnificent mystery of being alive. The remarkable thing about Frankl's approach to finding meaning is how it transforms our understanding of what constitutes a successful life. In our achievement-oriented world, we often measure success through external markers, career advancement, financial security, social recognition, or the accumulation of experiences and possessions. Yet Frankl's insights suggest a different metric entirely, one based not on what we acquire, but on how consciously we engage with whatever life presents. This shift in perspective becomes particularly relevant when we consider the quiet desperation that many people experience despite having achieved conventional markers of success. The executive who has climbed the corporate ladder but feels empty inside, the person who has accumulated wealth but lacks a sense of purpose, the individual who has checked off all the boxes society suggests matter, yet still feels something essential is missing. These experiences aren't personal failures, but natural consequences of measuring our lives by external standards rather than internal alignment. Frankl would suggest that this emptiness often signals our readiness to engage with more authentic questions about what makes life worthwhile. Instead of asking how we can get more from life, we might explore what life is asking us to give. Rather than focusing on what we lack, we can investigate what we have to offer. This isn't about self-sacrifice or ignoring our needs, but about recognizing that fulfillment often emerges through our contributions rather than through our accumulations. Consider how this reframing might apply to your own daily experience. The routine tasks that sometimes feel meaningless might become opportunities to practice presence and care. The challenging relationships that test our patience could become invitations to develop compassion and understanding. The setbacks that initially feel like failures might transform into occasions for discovering resilience and adaptability we didn't know we possessed. This doesn't mean pretending difficulties aren't difficult, or forcing gratitude for painful experiences. Rather, it involves remaining curious about what each experience might teach us, what qualities it might develop within us, and how it might prepare us for future opportunities to serve and contribute. This curiosity transforms us from passive recipients of whatever happens to active participants in extracting meaning from our circumstances. Frankl discovered something profound about the relationship between meaning and time that applies beautifully to our contemporary struggles with busyness and distraction. He observed that people who maintained their inner strength weren't necessarily those who had clear or knew long-term plans exactly how their situation would resolve. Instead, they were individuals who brought full presence to whatever the current moment required of them. This presence-based approach to meaning offers a refreshing alternative to the goal-obsessed culture many of us inhabit. Instead of constantly reaching toward future achievements or dwelling on past accomplishments, we can discover significance in how fully we engage with what's directly in front of us right now. The conversation we're having, the task we're completing, the person we're with, the challenge we're facing all become opportunities for meaningful participation rather than obstacles to overcome on our way to somewhere else. This shift from future-focused striving to present-moment engagement often reveals sources of satisfaction we hadn't recognized. The parent who stops multitasking during bedtime stories and gives full attention to their child's questions might discover unexpected joy in these moments of connection. The employee who brings genuine care to routine interactions with colleagues might find their workday becoming more fulfilling even without any change in job description. The person who approaches household tasks with mindfulness might transform chores into opportunities for meditation and service. These aren't dramatic revelations, but gentle recognitions that meaning is available right now, in whatever we're already doing, when we bring full attention and authentic care to our engagement. This availability of immediate significance offers profound comfort during periods when long-term goals feel unclear or when external circumstances limit our options for major life changes. Frankl also understood that meaning often emerges through what we might call conscious relationship. This involves our willingness to see other people not as means to our ends or obstacles to our goals, but as fellow travelers on the journey of existence, each carrying their own struggles, hopes, and potential for growth. This perspective transforms every interaction into an opportunity for creating meaning through authentic connection and mutual recognition. The practice of conscious relationship might begin with something as simple as making genuine eye contact when someone is speaking to you, offering your full presence rather than planning what you'll say next. It could involve approaching conflicts with curiosity about the other person's perspective rather than focusing solely on being right. Or it might mean recognizing the grocery store clerk, the bus driver, the postal worker as individuals deserving of respect and acknowledgement rather than simply functional elements in your day. These shifts in how we relate to others create ripples of meaning that extend far beyond what we can see or measure. The genuine smile you offer to someone having a difficult day might be exactly what they need to feel less alone. The patience you show during someone's moment of confusion or frustration might restore their faith in human kindness. The interest you express in another person's experience might provide them with a rare moment of feeling truly seen and valued. This understanding of relationship as a pathway to meaning addresses one of the most profound challenges of modern life, the epidemic of loneliness and disconnection that affects so many people despite our unprecedented technological connectivity. Frankl would suggest that this loneliness often arises not from lack of contact with others, but from lack of meaningful contact, interactions that acknowledge our shared humanity and mutual vulnerability. The antidote to this isolation isn't necessarily meeting more people or having more social activities, but bringing more consciousness and authenticity to whatever interactions we do have. This might mean sharing something genuine about our own experience rather than maintaining polite superficiality. It could involve asking questions that show real interest in others' inner lives rather than simply exchanging information. Or it might simply mean offering our full attention as a gift to whoever we're with, recognizing this presence as a form of love and respect. Frankl's insights also illuminate how meaning can emerge through our relationship with the natural world and the larger mystery of existence itself. He understood that human beings have a deep need to feel connected to something greater than our individual concerns, whether we call this nature, the universe, the divine, or simply the incomprehensible vastness of being. This connection often occurs through moments of what we might call cosmic perspective, experiences that remind us of our place in the larger scheme of things. Perhaps it's watching a sunset and feeling simultaneously insignificant and profoundly connected to the beauty of existence. Maybe it's holding a newborn baby and experiencing awe at the miracle of life. It might be stargazing and contemplating the vastness of space and time, or walking in an old-growth forest and sensing the ancient wisdom held in those trees. These experiences don't require special beliefs or spiritual practices, though they often feel deeply spiritual. They simply ask for our openness to wonder, our willingness to be moved by the mystery and magnificence of existence. In a culture that often reduces life to practical concerns and material pursuits, these moments of cosmic connection remind us that we're part of something vast and meaningful that extends far beyond our immediate circumstances. The practice of cultivating this larger perspective often begins with creating space for contemplation in our busy lives. This might involve spending time in nature without agenda, simply allowing ourselves to be present with the rhythms and beauty of the natural world. It could mean developing practices of gratitude that help us recognize the countless gifts we receive moment by moment, from the air we breathe to the complex systems that support life on Earth. Or it might involve regularly reflecting on the incredible improbability and preciousness of conscious existence itself. These practices don't require dramatic lifestyle changes or extensive time commitments. Often, they involve bringing a different quality of attention to experiences we're already having. The walk we take for exercise becomes an opportunity for connection with the natural world. The food we eat becomes a chance to appreciate the countless hands and natural processes that brought nourishment to our table. The breath we take becomes a moment of gratitude for the gift of life itself. This expanded awareness often leads to what Frankl called self-transcendence, the recognition that our individual lives gain significance through their connection to purposes and realities larger than our personal concerns. This doesn't diminish our individual worth, but places it in a context that reveals its true preciousness. Like a single note that becomes beautiful through its contribution to a larger symphony, our lives find their deepest meaning through their participation in the ongoing creation of consciousness, love, and understanding in the universe. As you rest deeper into the quiet of this evening, consider how these insights might gently reshape your relationship with the ordinary moments that make up your days. There's no pressure to transform everything at once or to suddenly become perfectly present and purposeful. The invitation is gentler, to remain open to the possibilities for meaning that surround you, to notice what calls to your authentic nature, and to trust that your willingness to engage consciously with life contributes something valuable to the larger tapestry of human experience. The wisdom that Frankl discovered in humanity's darkest hour continues to offer guidance, not because it provides easy answers or guarantees comfortable outcomes, but because it reveals something essential about human nature, our capacity to create significance through our conscious participation in whatever existence offers us. This capacity doesn't depend on ideal circumstances, perfect understanding, or external recognition. It requires only our willingness to show up authentically, to respond thoughtfully rather than react automatically. and to trust that our genuine engagement with life has value that extends beyond what we can see or measure. In this peaceful space between today's experiences and tomorrow's possibilities, let yourself rest in the knowledge that meaning isn't something you have to achieve through extraordinary effort or perfect clarity. It's something you can discover and participate in through your openness to growth, your willingness to contribute whatever gifts are yours to offer, and your trust in the process of becoming more fully yourself through conscious engagement with whatever each day presents. The search for meaning that Frankl described isn't a destination we arrive at, but a way of travelling through our lives with awareness, intention, and appreciation for the profound opportunity that conscious existence represents. Tonight, as these reflections settle gently into the quiet spaces of your mind like seeds finding their place in fertile soil, remember that your capacity for creating meaning is as natural and reliable as the tide, as constant as the stars, and as close as your next breath offered consciously to the magnificent mystery of being alive in this moment, in this place, as exactly who you are. What strikes me most deeply about Frankl's final insights is how they address the question that visits us all in quiet moments. Does any of this really matter? When we're lying awake at 3 a.m, when the day's distractions have fallen away and we're left alone with our thoughts, this question can feel both urgent and overwhelming. Frankl's answer, born from the deepest darkness humanity has known, is both simple and profound. Yes, it matters, but perhaps not in the ways we've been taught to believe. He understood that the meaning we create through our daily choices, our responses to difficulty, our moments of genuine connection with others, doesn't depend on being witnessed or recorded or remembered by history. The significance lies not in the recognition, but in the doing, not in the outcome, but in the integrity of our engagement. This perspective offers profound comfort for those times when we feel our contributions are too small to matter, when we wonder if our struggles serve any purpose, when we question whether our ordinary lives have any real significance. Consider the parent who stays up all night with a sick child, offering comfort that will likely be forgotten by morning. The friend who listens patiently to the same worry expressed for the 100th time. The person who chooses gentleness in a moment when harshness would be easier. These actions don't change the world in dramatic ways, yet they represent the fundamental human capacity to create meaning through love, to find purpose through service, to discover significance in the simple act of showing up fully for whatever life asks of us. Frankl's understanding of meaning extends beyond individual actions to encompass what we might call the art of conscious living. This involves developing sensitivity to the subtle invitations that each day offers, the quiet opportunities to express our values, to grow through challenges, to contribute something valuable to the ongoing human experiment in finding purpose within mystery. This sensitivity isn't something we're born with, but a capacity that develops through attention and practice. Like learning to appreciate music or developing an eye for beauty, the ability to recognize and create meaning becomes more refined as we cultivate it. We begin to notice when we feel most alive and engaged, what kinds of activities energize us rather than drain us, which relationships nourish our spirit and which leave us feeling diminished. This isn't selfish awareness, but wise stewardship of our finite energy and time, ensuring that we invest ourselves in ways that align with our deepest nature and serve purposes we genuinely care about. This conscious curation of our lives doesn't mean avoiding all difficulty or seeking only pleasant experiences. Rather, it involves developing what Frankl called the wisdom to know the difference between necessary suffering and unnecessary suffering. Some pain serves growth, teaches compassion, or leads to important realizations. Other suffering simply depletes us without contributing to our development or our capacity to help others. Learning these two kinds to distinguish between of difficulty becomes an essential skill in creating a meaningful life. The person who endures a challenging relationship that consistently undermines their well-being isn't necessarily demonstrating noble perseverance. Sometimes the most meaningful choice involves setting boundaries or walking away, creating space for relationships that allow both people to flourish. Similarly, the individual who stays in work that contradicts their values isn't always showing admirable dedication. Sometimes meaning emerges through the courage to seek opportunities that better align with their authentic nature and desire to contribute positively. This discernment requires ongoing attention to our inner compass, that subtle sense of rightness or wrongness that guides us toward what serves our growth and the greater good. This compass isn't always reliable in the short term. It can be influenced by fear, conditioning, or temporary emotions, but over time it tends to point toward what truly matters to us. Learning to trust this inner guidance while balancing it with practical considerations and responsibility to others becomes part of the ongoing practice of meaningful living. Frankl also recognized that meaning often emerges through what we might call creative response to limitation. Every life contains constraints, physical limitations, financial realities, family responsibilities, social circumstances that narrow our options in various ways. Rather than seeing these constraints as obstacles to meaningful living, we can explore how they might become the very conditions that call forth our creativity, resilience, and ingenuity. The parent with young children who discovers new forms of artistic expression that can be practiced in small increments of time. The person with mobility limitations who develops profound skills in writing or counseling or digital creation. The individual with financial constraints who finds deep satisfaction in simple pleasures and meaningful relationships that don't require expensive resources. These aren't consolation prizes, but genuine discoveries of sources of meaning that might never have been explored without the pressure of limitation. This perspective transforms what could feel like resignation into active engagement with possibility. Instead of waiting for ideal circumstances to begin living meaningfully, we can work creatively within whatever boundaries currently define our lives. This doesn't mean accepting unjust limitations or failing to work toward positive change, but rather recognizing that meaning is available right now, within whatever constraints we currently face. The practice of creative response often begins with shifting from victim consciousness to artist consciousness. The victim asks why these limitations exist and focuses on what they prevent. The artist asks what these constraints make possible and explores how to create beauty, meaning, or value within whatever boundaries exist. This shift doesn't change external circumstances immediately, but it transforms our relationship to those circumstances in ways that often open new possibilities we couldn't see before. Frankl understood that this transformation from passive endurance to active creation represents one of the most profound developments available to human consciousness. It's the difference between being carried along by circumstances and participating consciously in shaping our response to those circumstances. This participation doesn't guarantee that we can control outcomes, but it ensures that we maintain agency in our own experience regardless of what external forces may be beyond our influence. As we reach the end of our gentle journey through Viktor Frankl's profound wisdom, let these insights settle into your heart like the last notes of a beautiful song. His discovery that we can find meaning in any circumstance, that our response to life's challenges is always within our power, offers a quiet kind of hope that no darkness can extinguish. Whether you're facing your own struggles or simply seeking deeper purpose in everyday moments, remember that meaning isn't something you have to achieve or earn. It's something you can create and participate in through your willingness to live consciously, love authentically, and respond to each day with presence and care. Sweet dreams, dear listener, and may you wake knowing that your life, exactly as it is, holds infinite possibilities for meaning.